welcome to our ghostly ball. So I'm so happy to introduce you to the film tonight because I hope it will scare you. But if it doesn't scare you, at least it's going to perhaps leave you with an interesting experience. Nosferatu is the most famous, probably, ghost story ever made. It's not a ghost story. It's a story about a vampire. Now, do me a favor. For those of you that haven't read Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula, please try it. It's one of the most fascinating, riveting novels about the horror genre that exist. When I was your age or when I was a teenager, it just left me riveted. I was thinking about it for several days and mostly scared. So when Murnau, of course, is a very famous German director from the 20s. He, in fact, was so famous, he had made, after Nosferatu, he had made a film called The Last Laugh that didn't even use title cards. He had shown that he knew everything about sort of, pure cinema that anyone knew. However, before this, he had made a number of films, almost 22 films, before he got to the end of his career, which was very quick. Came to Hollywood, made one film, Sunrise, and then had a car accident and died at 31. So there you go. That was the end of him. In Nosferatu, it's the end of a lot of people because, of course, the vampire is really hard at work. What makes this film so unusual is there's almost 30 films about Dracula, but not one of them has the imagery that this film does, that is the sort of creep out factor that makes us all so happy at Halloween. In the first place, it isn't named Dracula. Nosferatu is a name they came up with because Murnau mistakenly thought Nosferatu was the name for a vampire in Hungarian. Of course, it wasn't, but it certainly helped this film. It's also, when you say Dracula, well, that's fairly easy. It sort of leaves a in your throat. When you say Nosferatu, you're saying something that basically almost, kind of, I think what it does is it clams up your throat. And it's a very appropriate name for this film. What Murnau did is he rearranged things because, of course, they didn't have the copyright. And it turns out there was another vampire hanging around, and that was Bram Stoker's wife. She basically didn't want anyone to have anything to do with the material unless they paid her a lot of money. It sounds like something you'll hear today, right? But they didn't have any money to give her for the copyright or for the royalties. So they basically, they sort of, they jiggled around and they actually made some of the characters different. They renamed everyone in the film. They tried their best to get out of any kind of lawsuit that could be brought against them. So they made the film, and the film was very well received, but the film company that made it actually went broke. It went broke bartering for all of these trials that Mrs. Dracula brought on them. And basically she ran them out of business with all of the things that she was bringing about, against them. And then, of course, she won in the courts. And so they decided they should burn every copy of the film that it was in existence. Thank goodness Dracula had a life of his own. You couldn't kill him. He's a vampire, for goodness sakes. So basically, some people had saved copies of the film. Some of them arrived in America. But it was really funny because Mrs. Dracula or Mrs. Stoker would track them down. She would come into theaters. She would take the print and burn them in the street, out of revenge. It was certainly a horror tale that is basically on real life. The man that plays Dracula is another issue in the film. He was so skinny and he was so strange looking. Some of the actors would be absolutely horrified of him. They were scared of him just because of the way he looked. And the designer did these marvelous things that you will not see in other Dracula films. He gave him these pierced ears. He Instead of mostly Dracula has teeth that come out on both sides, and oh yeah, that's a vampire. No, they push them together like a rat, and he has this face that is genuinely kind of off-putting and frightening. One of the most scary scenes in the film, or the scariest that I can remember, is the scene on the boat, because of now they added a plague, and now you had people dying around you. Sound familiar? It's something that was a great addition to the original material, and also there's sort of inclination that wars are being fought, and so we've got wars, plague, madness. What more do you want for a juicy horror movie? I don't know, but you will find out as you watch this wonderful film. Please get scared out of your wits. We really hope you will. Bye.